Hey, my buntag, my hapon, my B, no matter where you are in the world. Welcome to today's live stream. And Cindy's not here right with me, so I need to check. So you're going to have to bear with me for just a second. And I need to check because of past audio issues and all that fun stuff that this thing actually is uh, going out live and actually has some kind of audio to it. Okay, hopefully this is your. Everybody's going to start hearing this real quick. Hey, I can hear it. That's what I got the earphone for. Yeah, now I just got to shut everything back down. There we go. Okay, I'm good. I can hear myself. Morning, Mr. David Brown. How are you doing today? I'm doing rather well, and Sydney's okay. She's still very pregnant, and there's some days it shows more than others. Today is the last day of MECQ here in Cebu City. That it was announced officially that starting the 8th, we go back to the general community quarantine, which I don't know if that makes a whole lot of difference. That there's been a little bit of difference, but not a significant amount. And I'm kind of curious if some of the changes may not be more permanent when it goes back to the general community quarantine too. So it's like Cindy hasn't been able to get into any of the malls or any of the stores or pretty much anywhere since they did do this modified Kansas community, whatever, since this last couple lockdowns. And there's been some silliness on that one that we discussed a little bit ago. And I don't know if that's going to change. I hope it does, but I don't know that. So, it is what it is. I hate that expression, but it is. I don't know of anything better to say for that one. It looks really bad when I lean forward like that, doesn't it? I got to work on my stage presence doing these things, but is level 2 good or bad? That every country seems to have their own, even quite a few locales seem to have their own labels for what the different quarantine issues are. And I'm going to have to go back. I like Singapore's. It's the flu. Get on with life, people. Yeah, I'm not sure why they extended it just to 7 days and didn't just let it lapse other than just one last quick shot at it. All right, wise guy, I take it you heard that comment. And some days they're just, you're right, it is what it is. Just some days there is no better description for especially the current situation going on. Because we're not going to change it. The average Joe is not going to change it. And it's just the powers that be just exercising their will and way. And I think that's a little bit of what caused the 7-day extension into this. They did just one last quick jab at the powers that be, said, we could do this. And because they really didn't have a justification to extend it the last 7 days. And to be bluntly honest, the numbers really, the actual raw numbers aren't justifying a lot of the extensions either. And that's part of the problem going on. And people realize that they're just not justifying those numbers. So I don't know. I don't know. It's going to go on. It's going to be what it is. And hopefully, and I've heard even some within the medical community here saying, hopefully by Christmas season, well, it already is Christmas season here, but by November, December, things will have started to open up much more significantly. So, and we're just continuing to hold out that hope. Very cool that my brother-in-law in the U.S. In Fayetteville was saying that the school is meeting in person now. I don't know. Cindy may know a little bit better on this. Cindy's actually downstairs on her computer that for as long as the battery holds up. I know you guys aren't going to be able to see it on here because it's a really tiny little thing. Yeah, maybe that the cord shorted out to my charger last night when we were watching videos. Okay, this is my channel, and I don't care at this point. So there's going to be a huge spike because of the college games, but none of the riots or protests caused a huge spike in okay, I'm not, yeah, I'm done with that train of thought. Cindy's cousin in high school in Manila, Paranaque specifically, is doing the modules, and yeah, it's. I don't know if the schools are opening here or anywhere, but yeah, it's getting silly here. But like I say though, it is starting to open up a little bit. Yeah, the cord that Cindy noticed it sparking and smelling, and where the cord sits, it's right next to a pillow. So fortunately, she noticed it quick, and it didn't catch pillow on fire or anything. But we finished out the rest of the movie just on battery. The battery on this is still fairly good. Okay. Okay, it is charging. The light here is normally green. You can't see it, but the light on the edge of the computer is normally green. And I've just noticed it's orange, but it's still charging. So it maybe charge, maybe because it's charging that it's orange. But anyways, was gonna go down today and get a new cable down to Ayala or SMC side. And I got thinking about it, and today's being the last day of quarantine. I don't have a whole lot of computer work to do today, so I could just return the cable to Cindy, and that way her and I can get out tomorrow. It'll give her a chance to get out for a little bit. Yeah, because this cable is 3 years old. Yeah, it's at least 3 years old. And I thought I had another cable around here that's got the 3-prong like that. And sadly, it's close enough to the plug-in that I don't think I could tear it apart and have enough left there to rewire. And I don't have a soldering iron, and I really don't feel like going and buying a soldering iron to try and solder this stuff back together. And again, we're back in that mode that we're not preparing to live here, just kind of an extended vacation here. Uh, and then we were looking at a knife sharpener. Typically, in the last few times that we've been here, there's been several places where you can go find a couple knife sharpeners just on the streets, and I haven't been seeing them for whatever reason, and you can speculate on the actual reasons, but I don't know what the actual reason is for sure. But I haven't seen them on there. They've got these bicycle things, the stationary bike that instead of pedaling a tire, it pedals a sharpening wheel or a set of sharpening wheels. And to go down and get our kitchen knife sharpened, that would have been the simplest, quickest way to do it. But like I said, I just haven't seen them or haven't noticed them. And I looked on Lazada and I happened to come across a work sharpening system, one of the nice electric ones. And believe it or not, it's about the same price as it be in the States. And thought about getting it. And bottom line is it's gonna be something that would have to go back to the States with us. So we really don't want to get it because of that. But if we're gonna stay here permanently, it'd be kind of a nice thing to have. But it just we're back into that situation. That a lot of things that we kind of like to get, we're debating: is it worth getting for the few months we're going to be here? Realistically, it's probably going to be June before we go. March is probably the absolute earliest that we'll most likely have all of our paperwork back. And to be honest, if we don't get it back until sometime April, we might as well just stay the rest of April and May. Our lease here is up at the end of May. So at the end of May, we need to make a decision on what's going on. And we'll have to play it by year at that point. If the powers that be manage to cram everything through and get it out in January, February, that'd be great. We'd consider going back pretty much any time after January. My sister was supposed to come in late February, early March, and she's not coming at this point. There's a couple other things that came up that she would prefer to go do, and trying to get tickets and stuff like that, with as risky as it would be, that she doesn't really want to do that, waste airline miles and do that. So she probably is not. Well, she isn't going to come at this point. It's just pretty certain she's not going to. So that would put us, if the powers that be manage to cram some paperwork way early, we might consider leaving that early. And at that point, a lot of it would come down to whether or not they would let us out of the lease, that early. A month or so, I think they wouldn't have that big of a problem. 4 or 5 months out of it early, yeah, they might have a little bit of an issue, especially with a place being vacant here already. And if they don't get that rented, I'm not terribly sure. Yeah, I definitely feel for you. These are Philippines that there's a lot of people that are stuck and just not able to get back. You might have a little bit better time by being able to get a 9A visa to get back in. But there again, it comes down to, is it worth the quarantines you'll have to go through to be here for the length of time you'd normally be here. And there's a fair amount of people that are beginning to accept that this Christmas might be, well, it will be really sketchy on whether or not you're going to be able to get back. And at this point, trying to get tickets early enough to get a reasonable price on them, uh, that window's pretty much closed. Yeah, that this is our Philippines. That's part of the problem too. Is we know a few people that would like to come on a vacation. They typically do come on vacation, but with all the quarantines they're going to go through, coming on even a 30-day vacation, you're spending a lot of times 30 days in quarantine getting here. Um, yeah, that's one place where I got lucky. Is I was able to get out early, and quite bluntly, that was the only reason we were able to move here to begin with, to even consider moving here. Uh, June of this year was supposed to be my retirement date, and that would have been retiring early with a really limited amount, to the point where it may not have been worth it. Going out the way I did definitely made it worth it. Because even Landhawk 56, he changed his channel name again, and I can't remember what he changed it to. But even he's admitting that, and he lives here. That it'd be moving back here, but between not being married, just being significant other, and the hassles of getting back, he just can't do it. Uh, we've got another mutual friend of ours, Love Tennessee. They've got plans to come back, but are accepting if it's too bad a quarantine. Bill, is that what he changed his name to? Just Bill. The channel name too is just Bill. Uh, I think he changed it to his name, Bill something or other. I can't remember what that is. But actually, I haven't heard. Last I knew, he was up in Washington touring around, and I don't think I've seen video since. That all right, now I'm getting curious. Ooh. My son just sent me a text. Kind of had a perfect time to pick up the phone. Yes, I'm way too fanatical about stupid things like this. Uh, yeah, his channel is. I don't see it right out that way. Yeah, Bill Stroud. He did change it to just his name. Yeah, he did change it to just his name, Bill Stroud. Uh, I never did watch the video on why he changed the channel name. I need to go back and watch some of his. Yeah, I'm sorry. That would have ate me alive if like I remembered it. Uh, yeah, he changed his channel name a little bit ago. He explained Landhawk was that he was a network technician, the local area network, and he was really good at spotting trouble, and that they started calling him Landhawk. Uh, but he could run down trouble on a land system like a hawk, land hawk. Uh, so why he changed it back to just his name, I don't know. But there again, there's been a few people that have changed channel names here in the last little bit for different reasons. The Dumagetti expat changed his to something else, and I'm not entirely sure what it is because the his wife finally graduated nursing school and passed all the boards, and I guess she had a job over in Leyte or something like that just before all this went down and went stupid. Because they were actually talking about doing OFW, and because he's married to her, that generally most of the countries that would take her as a nurse would take him as well, being a spouse. Uh, but there's been a few that have changed their names, changed channel names for different reasons. Uh, I actually, that Cindy and I discussed this because originally we came up with the name Philippines to Phoenix. And because that she came to Phoenix and that's where we were basing out of. And we actually thought about changing the name to Phoenix to Philippines just to highlight what we're doing today at this point in time. And for various reasons, this is our Philippines. You saw a name change can be hard on subscribers. And it's really not encouraged to do name changes, especially if you've got a growing channel. And that's where ours is, that it's still growing. Well, hopefully it'll continue growing all the entire time we do it. But yeah, it's not a great idea unless there's a real good reason for it. Oh, no. David, that guy's Philippine Dreams. Ned Kelly is his name. That Philippine Dreams. That he's been in Dumagetti 5-6 years now. That he came to Dumagetti just about the same time Cindy was leaving the Philippines. And that's part of the reason why it's really discouraged to do name changes. I'm trying to think of Dumagetti expat's name. I can't think of it. Mark. Mark? I think it's Mark. No, might be Mark. I don't know. I can't think of his name right now. That Rod. Can't think of his last name to save my life. Rod, because the Dumagetti guy and Cebu guy are both named Rod. I thought that was kind of cool. That, but yeah, Rod Talton is the Dumagetti guy. I don't know Rod. I don't know Cebu Rod's guy. Amazing Philippines. I don't know his last name. Not a big deal. Oh, the bald guy. Yeah, that he is a flaming liberal. I when he first came here, he did some really cool videos, and then he started getting way more political and putting a pretty political spin on a lot of things he did and said. And that's when I kind of lost interest in his channel. And yeah, I didn't. His politics and mine don't agree. And that's a big part of the reason why I try to keep politics out of the channel for the most part. In these live streams, I don't so much mind it because it's not what the intent of the channel is. They just got to be something I kind of enjoy doing. And they do help quite a bit with analytics, to be bluntly honest. Especially when I can get 5-6 people watching, that it bumps up a huge amount of watch time for me still. Hey, John, how you doing, Philippine Experience? Good to have you over here today. His early videos were really cool, and he still does some that are really good videos. But yeah, for the most part, a lot of his videos still have that political slant to them that I just don't care for. And I try to keep any of that out of the actual videos that I post. I don't think I ever have posted a video that had any obvious political slant to it for that exact reason. And the other issue that I've got is a few times I've asked him questions on Facebook and on here, and he just doesn't respond to anybody. And so, or at least to me. And so I just kind of gave up trying. And that's a big thing too, that I don't mind going back and commenting on people. But unless you've got a huge channel, where you get multiple thousands of comments, I can't appreciate you not making some effort to respond. Man, could be Jojo Cracker. Oh, I hadn't even seen that. I still subscribe to his Facebook page, and we'll talk with it, or we'll see that. I've made some comments on that. Even he's never replied to any of my comments, and there doesn't seem to be a whole lot that he replies to. I try to reply within 24 hours to any comment that's made on our Facebook page. I have been letting the slack here the last little bit in the YouTube channel, but I try to respond to any of those within 24 hours. Finn Snow, I've only messaged him a few times. I respect he's got a massive amount of subscribers, and probably spends a huge amount of his time doing that. But every time that I have responded, it may have taken a few days or even a week, he has responded. I respect that, and I will still continue to watch his videos. A lot of times I don't even comment on his videos, although I would like to, just knowing that he's probably never going to read them. I do sometimes respond to his videos if I can get in early, just simply because it puts Phil's to Phoenix channel name out there for people, and that's a big reason why I will comment on people's channel like that. So Jojo Cracker, did you guys get? How'd you guys handle all that flooding and that hurricane that came through? That I shared with this is our Philippines. That we got the outer bands of a hurricane that just came through. That it a moderate rain, probably until about from when I got up about 4 this morning until about 7, and it was just a moderate rain, just not heavy, not light, but just steady for, like I say, 3 hours, and it looked like it had been raining quite a bit when I got up. Last night for a couple hours we lost power. Yeah, they call them brown out here. I'm not entirely sure why. It kind of looks black to me when it comes out like that. But kind of goes back to that comment we had, or that discussion or I'm not sure if that was here with somebody else. They speak English, but it's not quite the same English we speak. Yeah, there's definitely an advantage to being a mountain people. I guess it's going to that. that weather report that I sent is saying that the eye of it is going to hit Manila area where Mama and Papa are. But again, it's not going to be very strong, and it may be back down to a tropical storm at that point. But it's going to be some pretty intense rainfall for a while. And then where it goes past, the models are predicting the storm surge. Oh, shoot. The storm surge to go right up Manila Bay, so that Rojas Boulevard and some of the more areas more prone to flooding are probably going to be underwater. So, but again, Manila's pretty used to flooding and having standing water like that for a few days, and it does drain right back pretty quick too. So it's not as bad there as it would be in other places. That, yeah, I guess early predictions did have it going up and then making the turn towards land late. So it was going to hit that area. The current predictions are showing it going through, I guess it made landfall in Leyte, southern part of Leyte, and it's coming across. Yeah, and there's times those storms will wander all over and change by the hour. Uh, Overall, that they seem to come up in you got the Philippines, they seem to come up and track north, so that yeah, your area gets hit way bad. But Mindanao, southern Visayas really don't seem to get hit that bad or that frequently. Yeah, these storms can be insanely hard to predict, especially the ones that do get away from the typical tracks early. That so many stinking things can affect them. Kind of that butterfly effect that the flapping of wings and a butterfly in South America can make a typhoon turn north somewhere in the Caribbean. That there's just too much to account for everything in the computer models that they do. And that's part of the reason why they've got a cone of prediction that gets wide quick. Uh, Hawaii years ago, uh, 70s, 80s, the Hawaii gets hit by tsunamis horribly, just by the way the island sets, and that it sets basically in a ring of fire, so that any of these tidal waves, and it's the only land at a couple thousand miles. Uh, but they've got one of the best early warning systems in the world. But early on, when it was getting in there, that they had one that they didn't fully understand everything yet, and they were developing it. And they issued a warning, and everybody took it serious and got out, got to higher grounds, and nothing ever came of it. And then a couple months later, when another one came, they were, oh, yeah, we've been through this before, and they stayed, and it was a pretty horrible loss of life, more so than typically would have happened. So they started figuring this stuff out really quick, and were a little bit less forward with early warnings until they got better at predicting them. Tsunamis, on the other, unlike hurricanes, they come quick. So you don't always have a whole lot of room for error. Uh, these hurricanes will linger and move fairly slowly. So that you do have a little bit more room for error, even if people do stay, past the early warning. You still have the ability to tell them, no, you need to get out now. It's here. But it's I've never been. I don't want to say this. The summer I lived in Florida, or out of the year I lived in Florida, there was a hurricane that came up the Gulf, but it didn't hit Tampa. And that's the closest I've really been to a hurricane. Back in 1972, the area that I lived in got hit by the remnants of Hurricane Agnes that came up the eastern coast, the eastern seaboard. And there was some really intense flooding in that area. But none of the winds or anything like that. In Florida, there was some heavy winds, but it wasn't hurricane winds. So I've never been through a hurricane as such, and I'm kind of, in a weird way, kind of looking forward to experiencing one. I've never been through an earthquake. Uh, Not terribly looking forward to a bad one, but I kind of like to have, kind of like to experience a small one. Just is something different. That the closest I ever came is there was one that hit in Phoenix area. It was like a 1 or a 2 or something like that, but it was an extremely minor one. Uh, that we were in a crew truck at work, and our crew truck has 500-gallon water tank for mixing concrete and cleaning and stuff like that. And it's an unbaffled tank, so when the water sloshes, it'll actually move the truck a little bit. And matter of fact, in the cab, I'd periodically do this. I'd shake a little bit to get the truck to move a little, and then the water would actually magnify it. And that's kind of what it felt like. Is somebody jumped on the floorboard or something to shake the truck a little bit, and the water to slosh for a minute. And that's what my partner and I thought. But it took a minute, and we realized, well, wait a second, neither one of us moved that bad. And it was about that time that we found out that there was an earthquake. Yeah, I've never, JoJo Cracker, I've never experienced anything like that. Um, I don't think there's ever been one. I don't think there's ever been one here on our vacation. There's been a couple times there's been a hurricane in the Philippines while we were here, but it was never close enough that we were ever affected by it. Actually, I think this rain is the worst that I've seen affect an area affected by since I've been here. And we're in a rainy season, and we've had worse rainstorms than this since I've been here. A couple months ago, we got hit overnight with a really bad thunderstorm, and some of the streets flooded and stuff like that, much more so than normal. But again, within a few hours, the water drained back off and it left. So even that wasn't that big of a deal. I remember Camille. I remember hearing of Camille, but I don't remember anything going on or any of the news from that era. The only one that runs out in my mind is Andrew when it came through Florida. And the biggest reason why that one reminded me is I actually worked with a guy at that point in time that, ironically, his name was Andrew. And he had a tendency to be a bull at work, and a lot of times he'd wind up flattening and destroying stuff as he was trying to fix it. We were teasing him and busting his chops about it, that a rather properly named hurricane for him. All right, now I got to ask, when did Camille come through? That like I said, I remember the name, but that's all I'm pulling up is the name. I have been through a tornado. Western New York does get tornadoes and stuff. Oh, okay. Now I get why. Yeah, I would have never. I was born at 65, so I would have been 4 at that point. So yeah, that would have been not really before my time, but before my memory of it. Now, did they have a Category 5 back then, or did they recategorize that since then? Because I always remember Cat 4 as being the max hurricane, but there were some that they started calling super typhoons, and then they came up with that Cat 5 category, or at least that's what I understood that they did. Yolanda here in the Philippines was the first major one that I think that they actually didn't create that Cat 5 for. So I'm not sure which one was an actual active hurricane that they. That yeah, I'm sorry, I'm an idiotic geek in a lot of this stuff. I have way too much not useless information, but not terribly useful information. We'll go with that. Oh, they've actually got a Cat 6 out there now. Oh, wait a second. Never mind. Okay. I guess it's always been around, but I always thought Cat 4 was the highest one. Yeah, where's my glasses? There we go. There we go. Yeah, I found it. And yeah, I guess it's always been part of that. So for 1 minute sustained winds, you needed 74 to 95 mile per hour, or 119.53 kilometer is Cat 1. To be Cat 5, you got to be at 157 1 minute sustained wind, or 252 kilometer an hour. I don't know if you've ever been in that kind of wind, but one time I was on a motorcycle and on a closed track. This was not on a road, that it was closed track. It was Watkins Glen, New York. And I did manage to get up to 143 mile an hour. And even in that, and you were in racing gear, you were tucked and everything else, but even that, the wind on that was insane. Some of the windstorms I've been in Phoenix at 30 and 50 mile an hour, winding winds, and that was getting difficult to maneuver in. Was on a motorcycle one time, and a bad dust storm came up with 40, 60 mile an hour winds, and it was you were actually leaning into the wind, to the point I almost hit a truck. There was a semi that had finally got pulled over and just got completely off the road. And as I came through, it blocked the wind, and I almost snapped into it. But yeah, that it's even 60 mile an hour winds are pretty bad. So 200 mile an hour winds, 157 plus mile an hour winds. That's complete destruction. Tornadoes, they don't even try to measure the wind speed. They measure the aftermath. The F ratings for the tornadoes are more by aftermath than they are by the actual wind speeds and such in the tornado, which is actually kind of funny. But there again, the tornado, the center part of it can be the central funnel can be some insanely high speeds. Had to visit a proctologist to get that seat cover removed. Yeah, tornadoes can be insanely destructive, but the weird part to a tornado versus a hurricane is you'll have two houses standing next to each other, and it will completely destroy this house and not bother a plant sitting on a windowsill on the house next door to it. That they will come through with razor pinpoint accuracy, unless you live in a mobile home park. Then it wipes out every mobile home in miles. Mobile homes have a yeah, I love the topic discussions and changes, the way it naturally flows in here. I can always go with, well, when we were discussing MECQ, we were discussing politicians' hot air. So we can kind of connect the topics with that one. That there was a guy I know back home that he had a truck parked by a hay wagon, and a tornado came through. And it was a newer truck. This was back in the 80s, 90s. And the straw from the hay, there were a lot of places. I'm not entirely sure why this one got restricted, but I had to approve that last comment. But yeah, it actually the heavier straw through the sheet metal and a lot of that little pickup. That like I say, tornadoes can do some amazing damage. Yeah, there's been a lot of days that I actually intended on doing something topic, and it just got horribly off track. And I just generally try to go with the flow of what people are interested in talking about that day. I may have a topic in mind that today got sidetracked into the storms. I saw that he just went to Moab. I tried texting him a few times here recently, and now I kind of get why he hasn't been responding. But yeah, there were several times we tried to get over to Moab, but either it was under lockdown, some family issues came up, and then she wound up pregnant. And in the year we got here, we've been over to Moab once on a day trip, and that was it. Part of it is sunshine was down, and we really didn't want to get over there with no transportation. And she was pregnant at that point, and so we didn't want to go over there on a bike. She's not terribly comfortable on motorcycles and scooters here. She was in a pretty bad accident long before we met, right after, towards the end of her or just after college. She was in a motorcycle accident, scooter. Driver took a little bit too big of a chance and got her into an accident. And there's a fair amount of people that, with the changing conditions, that they're in the same boat. They just don't know when they're going to be able to go, because airline tickets traditionally go up quite a bit towards holiday season. They're not able to buy tickets in advance with any confidence, but can't afford to buy tickets at last minute either. And then definitely do not want to get into the possibility of having to come over here and spend their entire time over here on quarantine. And the way these quarantines are changing, there's been people literally that when they left wherever they were coming from and arrived in that time frame, that day or so time frame, travel, depending on where they're coming from, the conditions changed and they wound up doing an unexpected extended quarantine. We had some friends of ours that came over, and this one ticked them off. They typically come over on Balikbayan visa. Went to come over on a Balikbayan visa, got stopped by the airline at the airport, and were told, no, you have to have a visa. So they were able to reschedule the flight for the following day, and ran down and were able to get a 9A visa and get back and took the flight. But within a day or two of getting to the Philippines, the Balikbayan privilege came back into place. And so this time, that they were here, and they wound up staying a little bit longer than they intended. And wound up having to stay here on a visitor visa. And you go to CDO, correct? Because CDO's got the extra quarantines. So yeah, that you could potentially be doing 2 or even 3 different quarantines. So yeah, that would be an insane amount of time to go in quarantine. My in-laws back in a while ago went to CDO, and literally when they left, there was no quarantine. That they went by ship. They went by ferry. When they left that afternoon, there was no quarantine. And that evening, the officials released in CDO that there was now a quarantine, so they had to go through and do the quarantine. When my brother-in-law here a month or two was coming back from that, he had to go down to Cagayan de Oro CDO for some training to get the next promotion for his merchant marine. And when he went to CDO, because he went for educational purposes and all that, they waived the quarantine. But when he came back, the port officials were making him get paperwork. Yet after he went back and got the paperwork, when he got on the ship, that it happened to be a ship that he knew the people on, they never wanted the paperwork. So it's the changing rules here that it's making it really hard for people to come. And like you say, that these quarantine hotels are not necessarily cheap. And there's always that chance that you're going to show a positive result. And if you do, it can wind up making that stay extend quite a long time. And that would be my biggest fear. And it's like you say, the length of these quarantines could be expensive, but not only the length of the quarantines, but the costs, the length and costs associated with it. If you get a positive, you got to stay for even longer. And those costs can rack up quick, and they're not letting you go until you pay for it. Yeah, and at this point, even if you could come straight into straight into Cebu, you would still wind up doing the double quarantine because CDO has one. Then I've got a couple friends that are talking about coming. CDO is Cagayan de Oro. The name's David and Daniel. I get the two. I slightly dyslexic thing coming there. David lives in Cagayan de Oro, CDO. Daniel is in Muabua. I know I made comment a while ago that my brother-in-law got caught up in that situation that they put 11 people in quarantine that were fully vaccinated. Had tested negative. Were in quarantine for a while. And I think on day 10 that they tested again so they could fly. And 8 of the 11 tested positive after being in quarantine for 11 days and testing negative when they went in, and fully immunized. With Moderna even. There's a lot of these abbreviations like that although common in certain circles, are not common in others. My sister that comes here a lot had never heard of Cagayan de Oro referred to as CDO for some reason. And there's been a couple other things that she hasn't really heard of that kind of surprised me that she hadn't. But it's actually coming up on the 1 hour mark. It's actually coming up on 10 o'clock. Oh, I got that it is 10 o'clock. Tomorrow's supposed to be quarantine free. I'm tentatively going back down to that Abaca Cafe, that area, and going to do the main drag for the walking live stream part. And I'm actually going to take the drone. That looked to be a pretty decent area that had a couple of big open parking lots right there that I could be able to get the drone up without being blocked. I've tried to get the drone up here, but because it's so heavy building right there, right here, so close, the signal gets blocked and you don't have very much range at all. And I enjoy doing some of the I enjoy doing some of the yeah, I have a hard time reading and speaking at the same time, especially if I'm not speaking what I'm reading. I enjoy getting some of the cityscapes, some of the city scenes on the drone, and I would like to try and get some more. But it's been long enough since I've flown that I'm not terribly confident and comfortable of it. I don't think I've ever heard of Slabdow's nightclub. Could it be Jojo? Could it be known by a different name, or what part of Cebu was it in? Because if it was a Mango Square area, Mango Square, the current management, current mayor government went through and cleaned up the area. So a lot of the nightclubs and stuff like that. My apologies about that. This is our Philippines. My apologies about that. That if I can glance at it and read it, I'm good. A couple of times, when you make count about not the Cagayan Valley of Luzon, that I had to stop and read it because it didn't register quick. And Slabdo's nightclub, I don't think I've ever heard of the name, and it took me a minute to make sure I wasn't misreading the name or something like that. But yeah, we definitely need to celebrate a little bit of the freedom for tomorrow. Like I say, that even during this recent lockdown, though, that there wasn't a whole lot going on outside of normal. That almost sounds like a Slabadoo's. That almost sounds like a Cajun name. I'll have to check into that. I don't know. That there's a lot of nightclubs that are still going from a long time ago. There's a lot that have changed hands in 15 times in as many years. And there's some that are just flat out closed up. There used to be one right across the street from Hotel Elizabeth. That I was to one time. It was kind of cool, but it's closed up. Now this last time, and that had been there for a long time. It was actually one of the older clubs. Uh, yeah, I have a feeling a lot of the clubs are gonna definitely be celebrating tomorrow night. That's for sure. And I thought about going out to a couple of them just to see what's going on and just to try and meet up with a couple of expats. Uh, Maybe some of that tuba that they got running around, but I don't think you can run a motorcycle on Red Horse, David. But Red Horse is kind of strong, but it's not quite that strong. Uh, but I actually prefer Red Horse over San Miguel. Tiger is not too bad. The Tiger Dark is actually a little bit better than the other Tiger that I got. And I didn't realize that was a Philippine beer. That it's actually in the U.S. It's marketed as a Singapore beer or something like that, a Malaysian beer or something like that. I know basically where Hernan Cortez is. I'll have to check that out. Jojo, is that the one you were talking about? Slabdu Cafe, Hernan Cortez and Mendowi? That yeah, I love Google. Google is my friend here. Google's my friend everywhere, but here especially. Generally, it does really good. Every once in a while, it'll get a hiccup and do some really crazy, bizarre stuff, but generally, it's pretty good. There's been more than once that it's taken me down. When it starts routing me into neighborhoods, I start getting a little concerned. During all this, and I don't know if it's because of this or what, but there's actually a few places that are a little bit more hedgy, a little bit more less reluctant, more reluctant about allowing videoing inside. So there's been times I've had to be rather discreet about it. But I'll have to go down and check it out. I may try to make a video from down there. That actually, it's just over the hour. So, David, that actually sounds like a really good idea. Enjoy and be safe. And from Tochip Compound in Guadalupe, Cebu City, mabuhay.